And namaste, everybody. Bruce here from rootsoflife.org. And one of the questions that I'm constantly getting as a Reiki practitioner and Reiki teacher is the need to, kind of clean a room or to clean yourself to release any negative energy or energy uh, contained in that room or after a session. And I just want to share my thoughts on that. Because I think this is a question that is obviously met with a lot of honesty. Of course, in any type of Reiki experience, often they can be very, very overwhelming. There can be a lot of sensation, a lot of belief, a lot of experience, both from the client perspective and from our perspective as the practitioner. And just by the simple nature of you being a Reiki practitioner, you're probably more acutely aware of this experience of energy. So we're maybe a little bit more heightened on our awareness when we walk into a room or when we meet other people and we have that kind of an energetic connection, right, as it were, an energetic sensitivity, as it were. So in this video, I'm not in any way suggesting that these things are not right or that they're wrong or anything like that, or like that they don't exist or any of that. We're obviously very sensitive people. Like for me, for instance, I'm very, very sensitive in my body, very sensitive. So feeling different systems and organs and all of that type of stuff, right? It's very sensitive, sometimes to a fault, right? That's not to my best interest sometimes because it can be too overwhelming. It can be kind of scary sometimes or whatever. But if we return with all of that in mind, if we return to the practice of Reiki, then we're left with a decision, as it were, right? Remember the 5 precepts of Reiki. If we really look into the meaning of the precepts, remember, just for today I will not worry, just for today I will not be angry, just for today I will do my work honestly, just for today I will be grateful, just for today I'll be kind to all living beings, right? Well, in one of those precepts, just for today I will not worry, that precept to me anyways, just in and of itself, takes away the need to do all of these ideas of like self, energy bathing after a session or cleansing out the energy of a room or whatever. Because if we're not worried about it, then it doesn't exist, right? Reiki is the universe, Reiki is the energy of the universe. And so if that's the case, then you can call it whatever you want. Reiki, it doesn't matter. Christ-like consciousness or just energy or the universe, what doesn't matter. But if it's the energy of the universe, then it's all things. It's every possible thing that we can think of in the universe, right? Everything. So we then have to think about the idea of, okay, so somebody has a really negative, dark energy about them. That's true. People have that, right? They have trauma that they're working through. They have, darkness. They've got pain. They've got suffering. We all do. We are all suffering to varying degrees. And so when we come into contact with people who are really suffering, that energy can be really heavy. Of course, like again, that obviously exists. We feel it all the time. Likewise with a room, we can come into a room where there's maybe been a lot of abuse or a lot of healing has taken place, a lot of cathartic releases have taken place in that space, and there might be an energy imprint in that room. That's very logical as well. If we go back to the idea of Reiki being universal energy and it then becoming everything possible in this experience is some sort of a vibration of that energy. Well, then if I'm in your studio and I have a cathartic release, I let go a lot of pain or suffering or whatever, then it would be logical to think that that experience is now kind of permeating the space of your studio, right? What I've released has kind of permeated that space. Now, there's another axiom here that's super important to understand is that energy always flows via the path of least resistance. This is just a fact. And also that we need to remember that all systems in the universe, literally every single system in the universe is craving balance, right? So if we look at those two things, well then when I release a pain, a tension, right? I'm going to feel better afterwards because I'm no longer holding on to that thing that I've been storing away in my body. Okay. Now, if I release that, it's going to then find balance because it's going to be in a space of less resistance. With less resistance, the energy can just smooth itself out, like in every single system of the universe, right? Now, if we look at it like that, well, then we can come back to the original question of like, well, then why are we needing to clean the room? Why do we need to release energy after a session from our body where we do energy bathing or whatever? I would postulate that all of that is in the mind, right? All of those things are a form of attachment to the experience. Now, it doesn't just mean the experience of your client. They might have had a big release on the table. Maybe they're releasing a certain abuse that they've been holding on to for their entire life. I would then postulate that that abuse that is being released might also be felt by you, the practitioner, because you've suffered a similar abuse, right? We have this awareness, and this is, a very logical way to look at this is like this. If your house, the example that I constantly give on this, is if your house has been robbed or burglared, right, when you were home, well, then your safety has really been threatened. You might really be scared, you might feel unsafe, and so on. If somebody else comes to you who's also had a similar experience and they're able to release it, it might trigger your feeling of insecurity and lack of safety and the memory of that trauma in you as you are hoping to release. Remember that Reiki is a healing process for not just the client, but also ourselves, because Reiki is the universal energy. And so that means that we are both engaged in that process of healing, right? So if they're healing and creating stillness, that means I'm also healing and creating stillness because there's no separation between us, okay? Now, if they release that memory or that trauma of being burglared and it triggers a release in me, well, then I might have this feeling that I need to, bathe myself and let go of all this energy and, do all these types of things and burn sage and all of that type of stuff, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But notice what that does, right? It gives us a moment where we can think, oh, I have this experience. I feel this heavy energy, this dark energy. So I'm going to do this thing that I have believed will call in a state of stillness in that space of disbalance. So I'm going to burn sage, or I'm going to cleanse and wash my body off with, energy after a session and so on. But why are we doing that? Aren't we doing that because all of the belief is here in the mind? Like, for instance, how do you know that sage actually does any of that? Because you've been told it, right? And again, this is not a criticism. This is more of a discussion on the placebo effect here. If we know that sage is going to do these things, or crystals are going to do these things, or sound is going to do this thing, or Reiki is going to do this thing, then we are setting our mind to fixate on that outcome, and that's our response. It's like a reflexive action here, right? And so it's not a criticism in any way whatsoever. If you need to burn sage to feel more calm, then do that. What I'm postulating here in this video is that there's a maybe one step further that we are reminded in constantly by the precepts of Reiki and constantly by the meaning of Reiki. If we can recognize that everything is universal, and then we can sit with that universal energy and just not worry about it, well, then why do we need to burn sage? Why do we need to clean the body or cleanse the body? By cleansing the body and doing energy bathing after a session, or doing this, or wiping the hands clean or whatever, aren't we making a judgment on the energy? Aren't we creating a belief that this thing that I'm experiencing is negative or dark or dirty or heavy or whatever it might be? Energy can't be like that because energy is automatically balanced. It's the energy of the universe. It's our mind that is interpreting something differently. And so the action of energy bathing is really, oh, I feel this heaviness, I'm going to do this because it creates stillness here. So what I'm postulating here in this video is, what if we can just arrive at stillness in the body and in the mind in particular? Reiki is not necessarily a healing modality in the sense that it is more so a mind quieting modality. If we can quiet the mind, then what else is there, right? So think about that the next time that you are, feeling heavy energy in a room, or if you are feeling, like you really need to balance or calm down the body after a session, or you've got all of these rituals and things that you're doing, maybe sitting up crystal grids and burning sage and incense and doing all these types of things. Think about maybe a step further. I would invite you to try it. Try a Reiki session without any of those steps, right? And again, they're not there's nothing wrong with these steps. I have crystals, I burn incense, I have sage, I have all of these things. Why do I have them? Because sometimes for me, a self-healing experience, a meditation experience or whatever can become really, really heavy. It can become, there's a huge release of whatever it is that I'm holding on to. And to be quite honest, it can be scary. And so I go back to these anchors, right? But the less that I can rely on those, then the more I can go into the stillness of my body and trust that the universe has me, that the love of the universe is supporting this experience, and that I can just let go. Because if I can let go, then I'm no longer holding on to anything. My mind is quiet, there's no more story, and so I can heal, right? So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I hope maybe it gives some clarity on, maybe a step further in your practice. Don't forget the precepts and don't forget the meaning of Reiki. So I hope that has helped everybody. And as always, namaste and in Gashao to all of you, be well.